to get more eyeballs on the Garrett Williams of the world, this
Yeah.
team has to be showcased more on top of just his traditional play, right? Like McBride forced the issue, and he was a fantasy darling even without the touchdown. So I think McBride was hurt last year without the notoriety of the Cardinals, and I think Garrett Williams you could kind of make a case for this year. Well, the Arizona Cardinals season is coming to an end. Pro Bowl right around the corner, and Bo Brock, Johnny Venerable, PHNX Cardinals. The Cardinals, Bo, officially have 2 entries into the Pro Bowl this year. Of course, Budda Baker, the stalwart, making his 7th Pro Bowl with Arizona, and the newcomer, Trey McBride, after being snubbed a year ago, 1,000 yards this year. McBride, his first Pro Bowl appearance.
Yeah, I mean, it's something historic, I think, that you saw with Budda Baker, something he just continues to kind of weave himself within the fabric of the Arizona Cardinals organization. And you say, man, I remember the era that Budda Baker played. His 7th Pro Bowl selection, he joins Patrick Peterson, Larry Wilson, some guys that had done it for so long, so consistently. And then there's Trey McBride, kind of the arrival, right? Trey McBride, the first Cardinals tight end since, checks notes, 1970, Johnny. 1970. Unbelievable. And kind of after so many years, decades of futility, they've got a playmaking tight end in Trey McBride. And the alternates, I think, also are telling as far as the future of this team.
Yeah, most notably Paris Johnson Jr., as well as Chad Ryland, which came completely out of nowhere, and then, of course, DJ Dallas. Let's focus on Paris if we could, because I think that's, if you're Monty Ossenford, that's got to be notable, because, of course, Trey McBride, Budda Baker were drafted by your predecessor or the individual that came before in Steve Keim. And so if you're looking for accolades, if you're Monty Ossenford, you always want to be representative. How many All-Pros, Pro Bowls have you drafted, right? And I think, you know, for Paris Johnson Jr., although he's missed the last couple of games, he's played 14 games this year. His PFF grade over 80. I mean, he was one of the best tackles in the NFL. It's great to see that reflected. And then you look, Bo, at the tackles that are going to be represented for the NFC: Lane Johnson, Philadelphia; Penei Sewell, specifically Detroit; and then, of course, Tristan Wirfs for Tampa. Good chance that one of those guys is unable to go, given the fact that they're en route to the Super Bowl. Unless Minnesota somehow makes it, like, there's going to be an opening for for Paris Johnson Jr. to go if he's healthy enough to go. And I don't think we can diminish that. I mean, for a second-year player to come out and play as well as he did and to have those kind of accolades, I also think that, you know, while Cardinal fans carry their weight voting for Pro Bowl berths, like notable Ohio State players, notable players that people can recognize from the draft, that's not nothing. And I think Paris Johnson Jr. was helped by that.
Well, and also you look at kind of his draft class, right? I mean, Paris Johnson Jr. is clearly the best offensive lineman in the draft. And I think you have to credit Monty Ossenfort for realizing that, projecting that, getting back up the draft board in order to put himself in a position to select Paris Johnson Jr. 6th overall before, you know, as you talked about during that time, you can't have baby arms, T-Rex guy, Skoronski, or some of the other offensive linemen that were available after Paris. Like, you had to get up there and you took the premier tackle in that draft, and him being along with and mentioned in the same kind of sentence as Penei Sewell and Tristan Wirfs and these other first round guys that panned out. I mean, that's a very good sign for Monty Ossenfort. It's a great sign for Paris Johnson Jr. as he goes, you know, from year 1 to year 2, establishes himself as a top 10 tackle, a Pro Bowl caliber tackle. And then he has the opportunity to build on that in year 2, going into year 3, that he'll be eligible after next season for his extension. I don't know if they get the extension done, you know, as soon as possible, or if they kind of wait. It's more of a quarterback thing in order to do that. And Trey McBride's a different case because he doesn't have a 5th-year option. So Paris Johnson Jr., just another thing that you can kind of look back on and say, hey, the switch to left tackle and starting himself now as the franchise tackle was the right move.
You talk about Trey McBride's extension, which we all feel like is imminent. I think we're in the same page. $17-18 million will be the highest paid, if not one of the highest paid tight ends in the NFL. And again, taking that baton, Kittle is starting at tight end. McBride, of course, on the team. And then if you look at the AFC, it's Travis Kelce and Brock Bowers. So for the longest time, we were thinking, well, it's Sam Laporta, who's still very good, and Trey McBride. Well, Laporta made it over McBride last year. No Laporta this year. Bowers on the opposite side. And then you look at the age of Travis Kelce and George Kittle on the wrong side of 30 now. Could their run of dominance and route to Hall of Fame candidacies be coming to an end? I think this is one of many for Trey McBride. As long as Drew Petzing, who might be a four-letter word here in Arizona, with some of the fan base, as long as he's running the offense, like it's always going to feature the tight end. McBride's always going to have an opportunity to put up robust numbers. So I'm excited about Trey McBride. Let's look at any potential snubs that you see for the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I know a lot of the fan base is questioning whether or not James Conner could have made it at running back. I look at the names, Bo, Saquon, obviously, warranted, Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs. That's just such a loaded position group. You could argue maybe he should have been an alternate, but that's a position group at the end of the day, unless you're, top 1 to 5 in rushing and have a bunch of robust statistics, maybe catching the football and rushing touchdowns. It's just not an area where I felt like James Conner was going to get more votes than some of these other guys we mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as you said, loaded position, but James Conner still career high numbers as far as yards from scrimmage, rushing yards, 9 touchdowns, nothing to kind of turn your nose up at, but like historic numbers at the position. 2K from Barkley, what was going on in Detroit between Gibbs and Montgomery, and just, how successful that offense is overall. It's just, it's unfortunate for James. Like maybe he could get the honor here as teams make a deeper run into the postseason. I don't think it's out of the conversation.
Sure.
And then, where else do you look? I mean, who else was deserving for the Arizona Cardinals? Probably have to look, as in the same conversation as Ryland, Blake Gillikin, even though his season was cut short. And I hate that to be your only other option, but like nobody in the receiving game. Joey Blunt maybe in specialty. I mean, you really can't.
I may make a case for Garrett Williams at corner. You look at the corners, and this is gonna depress some Cardinal fans. Byron Murphy's a starter, ex-Cardinals second-round pick, but he leads the NFL, I think, with 7 interceptions. That's warranted. Jalen Johnson out of Chicago. Chicago's defense has been atrocious. I think he's getting by on name alone. And then you've got J.C. Horn from Carolina, Devin Witherspoon out of Seattle. Casual fans, unless you're a football junkie, do not know who Garrett Williams is. Yeah. And that's going to take time. I think it's going to take the Cardinals defense continuing to ascend. It's going to take some defensive takeovers continuing to increase, maybe a defensive touchdown here or there. And for the Cardinals people joke like, well, I don't want the Cardinals on national TV. They embarrass themselves. They had a good showing last weekend. Like it or not, like that kind of stuff matters when casual fans are voting for players, right? And so to get more eyeballs on the Garrett Williams of the world, this team has to be showcased more on top of just his traditional play, right? Like McBride forced the issue, and he was a fantasy darling even without the touchdown. So I think McBride was hurt last year without the notoriety of the Cardinals, and I think Garrett Williams you could kind of make a case for this year.
It's a great call for sure. And I think even in that primetime loss on Saturday, especially the first half, Garrett Williams played unbelievably well. PBU, he was getting his nose dirty, getting in, tackling ball carriers, something traditionally you don't see from corners. But him playing that slot corner, I'm wondering if him not getting as many reps outside hurts him a little bit. But look, I mean, he's just the stats, the analytics, they all tell a story that Garrett Williams is an ascending player. And maybe somebody who might be able to sneak onto the roster as you start to see the fallout as we traditionally see here with this farce of a Pro Bowl. But like the getting it on your resumes is the big thing now in the NFL. And Trey McBride and Budda Baker again, and hopefully Paris Johnson by the end of this thing, all add that on their resume.
Pretty wild when you look at just the landscape, the NFC West. Unless my eyes deceive me, Bo. The champion in the division, the LA Rams, have one selection, and that is Pro Bowl defensive rookie Jared Verse, who makes it as a backup. And again, that I think pushes his candidacy toward defensive rookie of the year, makes it even stronger. Then I look at Seattle, and I think it's only Devin Witherspoon at cornerback. So the two teams that finish ahead of you have one Pro Bowl berth apiece. And then you look at San Francisco leads the NFC West with 4, and it's all about those legacy plays. Yeah. George Kittle, obviously deserving, but then you've got Juszczyk and Fred Warner, right? And Nick Bosa. They flush it with the guys and that's why people are a little bit cynical, because I think we'd argue like Fred Warner's been good this year. Is he the best inside linebacker in the NFC? I'd probably argue no. And then how about this? Outside linebackers, I know this is going to get you going. Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, both were free agents that the Cardinals could have signed. Both go to Minnesota. Both make the Pro Bowl. So, again, a lot to dissect there. Anything that stand out to you?
No, I mean, I'm going to come to my own defense here. I mean, Van Ginkel probably wanted to reunite with Brian Flores, and it was the right move. The only way the Arizona Cardinals would have had to come over the top was some money, and you could make the case that they should have. I don't know if they ever got to the opportunity of a guy like Grenard, just based on the fact that they won 4 games, and the Vikings were a team that, even though they had cloudy quarterback position. But no, I mean, look, I mean, you fall short. You shouldn't be rewarded with a ton of Pro Bowlers. I think 2 very deserving, with some guys that are on just kind of the peripheral right there with Paris Johnson Jr. And you can make the case for a James Conner, Garrett Williams snub. But I think it was a fair kind of award season here for the Cardinals, accolade season for the Cardinals.
Yeah, looking ahead to 2025, Bo, anybody on your radar? We mentioned Garrett Williams. Yeah. That could be an option. Of course, like we all want to say, well, let's hope Marvin Harrison Jr. gets there. And you got Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Scary Terry, Amon-Ra making it receiver. Marvin Harrison Jr., though, like Paris, and even more so, has that name recognition, that cachet. He's going to have to fend off the likes of Malik Neighbors and company. But Marvin, to me, immediately jumps out as next year. Get him double-digit touchdowns, more consistent in the passing game. If he's off to a fast start, that's somebody that I would look to make the Pro Bowl in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., no doubt about it. Darius Robinson on the defensive side. I think Max Melton is somebody that can have a Garrett Williams-type sophomore season. And, the quarterback. Like to see the quarterback get back on track and play at a Pro Bowl
clip. He was on pace.
He was. So can he kind of recapture that? Can he get back on track? I think that's going to be so important for, not only this time next year to get recognized, but for the Cardinals' success, for Kyler Murray to be back on that trajectory.
Who made it that didn't deserve it? Were any specific Cardinals snubbed that we didn't mention? Drop a comment, subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube.